Hey, what's up everyone? One of my favorite missions in the Marvels Avengers campaign was the intro mission where young Kamala walks around the A-Day celebration. It's such a unique environment compared to the rest of the game, and it's crammed with little details. Today I want to go over all of those cool little Easter eggs and details that I was able to find while exploring A-Day, as well as some of them that might contribute to the future of the game. The first Easter eggs that I want to discuss are the 5 comics that Kamala collects. Each one is meant to be found during an arcade game themed around a specific Avenger, but if you're curious about what each issue's story contains, here's a brief summary. To start, the comic on the right is especially important, Avengers number 1, where the Avengers first team up to stop Loki. In the middle is Avengers number 4, the issue where Cap emerges from the ice. Both of these are historically important Avengers comics. The next 3 are a bit more interesting though. This one is a Secret Avengers number 2 variant cover where Black Widow is shown front and center. However, Black Widow hardly appears in this issue. It's mostly about how Nick Fury is wanting to enlist Taskmaster as an undercover member of their Secret Avengers. Taskmaster is placed undercover as a member of the High Council of AIM, a group that could potentially be of importance in the future of the game, but that's just my speculation. We also have Avengers number 122. The main storyline of this issue is about the Avengers fighting against the Zodiac villain group. Interestingly enough, that is also the premise of Avengers Assemble number 2, which deals with the emergence of the Zodiac, a group who are attempting to steal an item called the Ultimate Nullifier from Latveria. The decision to use comics involving the Zodiac was most likely a nod towards the Marvels Avengers prequel novel, which also heavily involves the Zodiac, but maybe there's a possibility we'll see the Zodiac again in the future of the game too. By the way, if you'd like to hear more about the prequel novel and how it potentially foreshadows events in the game, I have a video dedicated to it that you can check out as well, which will be linked in the description below. But anyway, whether or not some of these comics are nodding to future events remains to be seen, but it's interesting to see these ones in particular on display. Next, let's walk into the Retro Arcade. On the left, you'll immediately see an arcade machine for Captain Marvel. This is one of many Captain Marvel references we'll see not only on this level, but in the game itself. But in this level specifically, we can see Kamala's shirt is the Captain Marvel logo, and there are a couple lines dropped mentioning her name.
Don't even think about it. And how many times was her plane shot down?
Thanks.
I'm guessing you're a Captain Marvel fan. She's off planet, but she would have liked to meet you.
If you're wondering when we might get Captain Marvel in the game as DLC, the Twitter account Miller shares some insight. Based on data mines of Marvel's Avengers, Miller suggests this might be the rough outline of the order that DLC characters will release, with Carol potentially being the 6th or 7th DLC character. So we potentially have a while to wait for Captain Marvel, but I think it's because her inclusion will play a big role on the story going forward. But that theory would involve spoiling the ending of the game, so if you'd like to hear more about Captain Marvel, I'd recommend you check out my Ending Explained video. Moving on is a claw machine where you can win a ball with different Avengers logos on it. Besides the core playable Avengers characters, we can also see a ball for Pym-Tech, a nod to Hank Pym who was at one point Ant-Man. On the side of the machine, we can also see Hawkeye, who will be our 2nd DLC character, along with Black Panther, who's most likely our 3rd DLC character. Next, let's look at another arcade machine, this time themed around Captain America and Falcon. From its gameplay, we can see a fight between Captain America and Iron Man, which could be a nod to the Civil War comic series. As far as Falcon, we don't know too much about Crystal Dynamics' plans for him. There were some early data mines suggesting that he's on the DLC list, but nothing recently to suggest he's among the first batch. So assuming those early data mines were accurate, Falcon fans might be waiting until later into 2021 or sometime into 2022 for his release. Our next arcade machine isn't too exciting, but it does include some cool outfits that'll hopefully be added to the game. On the menu screen, we get the 90s Iron Man outfit, which is one of my personal favorites. We also get an image of Hawkeye here, although he is probably unrecognizable to most. This is one of Hawkeye's outfits from the 90s, and hopefully that'll be an optional costume when he releases. The same goes for the classic outfits for Captain America and Falcon from the previous machine. Outside of the Retro Arcade is a food court, and one of the stands is for shawarma, most definitely a reference to the first Avengers movie end credit scene. As we're entering the Iron Man experience room, we're stopped by someone offering to trade comics. When you turn the subtitles on, it says that this character is Dante, a character we later meet in the Anthill Resistance hideout. Dante is an Inhuman from the comics who goes by the name Inferno, like Dante's Inferno. Dante doesn't have much of a role in the Marvels Avengers game, and pretty much disappears after this cutscene, but it's possible he'll return later. No data mines have suggested him as a planned DLC character, so we'll have to wait and see what the future holds for Inferno. Still, it's cool to see characters from 8A show back up as Inhumans later. Inside the Iron Man experience is a high score list for the Iron Man virtual reality game, and there are a ton of Easter eggs here. I'm not sure I was able to get all of them, but here are the ones I know. The high score belongs to Pepper, a reference to Iron Man love interest Pepper Potts. Under her score is Sam W., which is Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, who we discussed a bit earlier. It also looks like we barely missed running into Sam since he had the best score this hour. Number 7 could be Danvers, as in Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. At 13 is Clint Barton, Hawkeye. 13 is Amadeus Cho, another Hulk. Second place is Tony Stark himself. 6 is Vision, who I really hope to see in the game at some point, but more on him in a separate video. Number 10 is Riri Williams, aka Ironheart. And at 20 is Rhodey, or James Rhodes' War Machine. Since I can't help but to mention leaks and data mines in every video, here's a concept art for War Machine leaked by the Twitter account Miller. As we discussed earlier, it seems that War Machine is planned to be a playable DLC character, but he might be a little farther down on the list. Regardless, it's cool to see Crystal Dynamics planting seeds for characters this early on. If there are any characters in this high score list that I missed, definitely let me know in the comments below. After meeting Thor, someone in the crowd asks if Thor will cut his hair, to which he replies that he won't.
I love your hair.
You ever thought of
Don't
cutting it?
forget, the Avengers signing event starts at 12:30
I
on
have
the
not.
main stage. Don't miss
shown
your
me.
chance to meet.
We'll have to see how that plays out, because we've seen some different promotional material showing Thor with a buzz cut, so it looks like he'll be cutting it after all. Once inside the Captain America room, there is a lot of info on the wall regarding his powers and his shield, but I'm just going to focus on some of the most interesting points, starting with Vibranium. In this excerpt, Vibranium is detailed as the primary metal used in Cap's shield, and that Vibranium can only be found in Wakanda. Another paragraph states that the export of Vibranium is prohibited. The mentions of Vibranium and Wakanda are hinting at the Black Panther DLC, which is rumored to include the Wakandan region, along with the villain Claw. If I had to guess, the part about Vibranium exports being prohibited will play an important part in why Claw is the villain, since he is often attempting to steal Vibranium from Wakanda. There is also an audio log where Monica states that she is having trouble getting Wakanda to sell her Vibranium, so my guess is that Claw will be hired by Monica.
I've made initial overtures to the Wakandan government now that I am in a position to do so, but I don't believe it will amount to much. We will need far more than they will part with, willingly.
Here it's mentioned that Princess Shuri assisted in Cap's current shield design, and I'm sure that Shuri will play a much larger role in Black Panther's DLC storyline. It was basically confirmed that Black Panther would be a DLC character when Crystal Dynamics revealed his official logo, but we haven't learned much beyond that. However, a leaked concept image of Black Panther's design has been circulating around, so I might as well show it here. There is also a leaked image of a Wakandan mining facility, so when Black Panther eventually releases, there should be a ton of content alongside him, all of which I think is being hinted at during this 8A event. While we're on the topic of Cap's shield, we get a few different shield images here too. The first is his original shield from Captain America number 1, with the second being another early, more pointed variation. The third shield with the blue outer ring seems to be from Cap's early comics as well, with this example being from Captain America number 5. Finally, the last shield looks to be the one he is using in the Avengers number 4 comic that we looked at earlier. It would be cool to one day get these as shield skins for Captain America, although I don't know if Crystal Dynamics plans on doing that anytime soon. Kamala later flexes her Avengers knowledge on this kid by using a Captain America quote.
And the mob, and the press, and the whole world tell you to move. You plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth, and you say no. You move.
This is from The Amazing Spider-Man number 537 as part of the first Civil War series. If you remember this quote from somewhere else though, that's probably because it was delivered by Sharon Carter as a Peggy Carter quote in the Captain America Civil War movie. So I'm not sure if we're meant to assume that Civil War has happened in the Marvel's Avengers game continuity or not, but that's the story Kamala is quoting here. Another interesting mention is of Black Widow taking down Madam Hydra.
Oh, all right. Hey, that thing you had me do with the storm drain cover? Pretty badass.
I mean, it's nothing compared to what happened between you and Madame Hydra. That was wild.
This could be a reference to a moment in Marvel Team-Up number 85 where Black Widow and Madame Hydra battle on top of a helicarrier set to crash into the Capitol building. Or it could be a reference to a different comic or just a moment in the game's continuity that we haven't seen. I'm honestly not sure. But if you think you know what Kamala is referencing here, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. As we're heading towards the VIP balcony, Kamala records a conversation between Nick Fury and Phil Sheldon. She mentions a character named Bruno. Bruno is Kamala's friend and later a love interest in the comics. Although we never see Bruno in the game, there is a photo of him in Kamala's room. So those were all the Easter eggs I could find during the A-Day celebration, but since you stuck around with me for this long, I figure I might as well show a couple bonus references I found during my current story playthrough. One of my favorite Avengers Easter eggs is this Alias Investigations business card that is very briefly panned over during the Golden Acres mission. Alias Investigations is the private investigation company owned and operated by Jessica Jones. We can also see the actual Alias Investigations building in New York, just barely out of reach past the AIM barrier. Hopefully down the road we'll get Jessica Jones and the rest of the Defenders as playable characters, although we haven't really had Easter eggs for the rest of them yet, besides the Meacham building, which is a reference to Iron Fist villain Harold Meacham. Also in New York is a poster for a movie called The Rumbler, starring James David. In the comics, James is also the star of the Rumbler movies, but later becomes a supervillain after falling into a crevice caused by an earthquake. He emerges with the ability to control the ground and becomes an antagonist for She-Hulk. This could just be a fun Easter egg, but it could also be a tease for She-Hulk, a character that was data mined a while back, with Miller hypothesizing that she could be our 4th DLC character. There was even an Easter egg for her during the Avengers CGI trailer, so I'd expect to see her before too long. The other references I want to show are of Kate Bishop and Scott Lang, both of whom are discussed separately during a conversation between Bruce Banner and Hank Pym. You have to wait a while for them to get to these topics, but it's worth the wait to hear these characters' name dropped.
You hear from Scott lately?
Not a word. Like the others, he went off the grid when AIM really started taking over.
You let this go too long.
Well, I wasn't going to say it, but yes, you did. Interestingly, I've been in contact with Miss Bishop.
Kate? Is she with Clint?
No, he's still missing. She's been looking for him for some time. Occasionally she helps me out when we're in need.
If she contacts you again, let her know that we,
I understand. I'll word it the right way. But she may not want to come back.
Totally understand. I just want her to know the invitation is open.
Kate Bishop has already been released as DLC, but it's cool to see her foreshadowed from the main game. The most interesting name drop is of course Scott Lang, most popularly known as the current Ant-Man in the MCU. Ant-Man was data mined a while back, but we haven't really heard much about him since. So we don't really know when or if we'll get to play as Ant-Man, but with this name drop of Scott Lang and the fact that Hank can no longer safely use Pym particles, I'm betting that Scott will be our Ant-Man if one becomes playable. But those are all the Easter eggs and references that I have for you today. If I missed any, you can let me know in the comments below. I'm sure more will start to emerge once the ability to replay the campaign is implemented into the game, which is something the developers have stated that they are actively working on, so stay tuned for that. I know Avengers had a rough release, but after the success of Kate Bishop's DLC, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what else Crystal Dynamics have up their sleeves for future Avengers storylines. I think there are still a lot of teases to dissect from the main game, so I still have a couple other Avengers videos planned where I'll do just that. For example, I plan on delving into the nods towards Ultron and Loki in the game soon. But in the meantime, if you'd like to stay up to date on Avengers or find others to play with online, you can join us on Discord, the link is in the description below. And if you're in the mood for some other Marvel gaming content, I recently began a new retrospective series analyzing all the cool aspects of some of the most beloved Marvel games, starting with Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1, with Ultimate Alliance 2 next on my list. But that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.